Good morning, fourth graders, and welcome to another session of Percy Jackson Read Aloud. Last time we read, they had entered the underworld by tricking the three-headed dog. They were there, and they could see that there were like different sections of the underworld. So there was like the punishment field, and there was like the regular field where everybody stayed if they didn't want to have a judgment, and there was the Elysium field, which is like for the best people in the world. And they could see that punishment field and the regular field was completely full, while the Elysium was pretty empty. So they were trying to sound confident, and Percy tells the others, "We'll be okay," trying to sound confident. "Maybe we should search some other places first," Grover suggested. "Like Elysium, for instance." "Come on, Goat Boy." Annabeth grabbed his arm. Grover yelped. His sneakers sprouted wings, and his legs shot forward, pulling him away from Annabeth. He landed flat on his back in the grass. "Grover," Annabeth said, "stop messing around." "But I didn't," he yelped again. His shoes were flapping like crazy now. They levitated off the ground and started dragging him away from us. "Maya!" he yelled, but the magic words seemed to have no effect. "Maya already! 911! Help!" I got over being stunned and made a grab for Grover's hand, but too late. He was picking up speed, skidding downhill like a bobsled. We ran after him. Annabeth shouted, "Untie the shoes!" It was a smart idea, but I guess it's not easy when your shoes are pulling you along feet first full speed. Grover tried to sit up, but he couldn't get close to the laces. We kept after him, trying to keep him in sight as he zipped between the legs of spirits who chattered at him in annoyance. I was sure Grover was going to barrel straight through the gates of Hades' palace, but his shoes veered sharply to the right and dragged him in the opposite direction. The slope got steeper. Grover picked up speed. Annabeth and I had to sprint to keep up. The cavern walls narrowed on either side, and I realized we'd entered some kind of side tunnel. No black grass or trees now, just rock underfoot and the dim light of the stalactites above. "Grover!" I yelled, my voice echoing. "Hold on to something!" "What?" he yelled back. He was grabbing at the gravel, but there was nothing big enough to slow him down. The tunnel got darker and colder. The hairs on my arms bristled. I smelled evil down here. It made me think of things I shouldn't even know about. Blood spilled on an ancient stone altar, the foul breath of a murderer. Then I saw what was ahead of us, and I stopped, dead in my tracks. The tunnel widened into a huge dark cavern, and in the middle was a chasm the size of a city block. Grover was sliding straight towards the edge. "Come on, Percy!" Annabeth yelled, tugging at my wrist. "But that's—" "I know!" she shouted. "The place you described in your dream." But Grover's going to fall. Grover's going to fall if we don't catch him." She was right, of course. Grover's predicament got me moving again. He was yelling, clawing at the ground, but the winged shoes kept dragging him toward the pit, and it didn't look like we could possibly get to him in time. What saved him were his hooves. The flying sneakers had always been a loose fit on him, and finally Grover hit a big rock, and the left shoe came flying off. It sped into the darkness, down into the chasm. The right shoe kept tugging him along, but not as fast. Grover was able to slow himself down by grabbing onto the big rock and using it like an anchor. He was 10 feet from the edge of the pit when we caught him and hauled him back into the slope. The other winged shoe tugged itself off, circled around us angrily, and kicked our heads in protest before flying off into the chasm to join its twin. We all collapsed, exhausted, on the obsidian gravel. My limbs felt like lead. Even my backpack seemed heavier, as if somebody had filled it with rocks. Grover was scratched up pretty bad. His hands were bleeding. His eyes had gone slit-pupiled goat style, the way they did whenever he was terrified. "I don't know how," he panted. "I didn't." "Wait," I said. "Listen." I heard something, a deep whisper in the darkness. Another few seconds, and Annabeth said, "Percy, this place." "Shh!" I stood. The sound was getting louder, a muttering, evil voice from far, far below us. coming from the pit. Grover sat up. What's that noise? Annabeth heard it too now. I could see it in their eyes. Tartarus. The entrance to Tartarus. I uncapped my sword. The bronze sword expanded, gleaming in the darkness, and the evil voice seemed to falter just for a moment before resuming its chant. I could almost make out the words now, ancient, ancient words, older than Greek, as if magic, I said. We have to get out of here, Annabeth said. Together, we dragged Grover to his hoofs and started back up the tunnel. My legs wouldn't move fast enough. My backpack weighed me down. The voice got louder and angrier behind us, and we broke into a run. Not a moment too soon. A cold blast of wind pulled at our backs, as if the entire pit were inhaling. For a terrifying moment, I lost ground. My feet were slipping in the gravel. If we'd been any closer to the edge, we would have been sucked in. We kept struggling forward and finally reached the top of the tunnel, where the cavern widened out into the fields of asphodel. The wind died. A wail of outrage echoed from deep in the tunnel. Something was not happy we'd gotten away. What was that? Grover panted when we'd collapsed in the relatively safe of the Black Poplar Grove. One of Hades's pets? Annabeth and I looked at each other. I could tell she was nursing an idea, probably the same one she'd gotten during the taxi ride to LA, but she was too scared to share it. That was enough to terrify me. I capped my sword, put the pen back in my pocket. Let's keep going, I looked at Grover. Can you walk? He swallowed. Yeah, sure. I never liked those shoes anyway. He tried to sound brave about it, but he was trembling as badly as Annabeth and I were. Whatever was in the pit was nobody's pet. It was unspeakably old and powerful. Even Echidna hadn't given me that feeling. I was almost relieved to turn my back on that tunnel and head toward the palace of Hades. Almost. The Furies circled the parapets high in the gloom. The outer wall of the fortress glittered black, and the 2-story-tall bronze gates stood wide open. Up close, I saw that the engravings on the gates were scenes of death. Some were from modern times, an atomic bomb exploding over a city, a trench filled with gas masks wearing soldiers, a line of African famine victims waiting with empty bowls, but all of them looked as if they'd been etched into the bronze thousands of years ago. I wondered if I was looking at prophecies that had come true. Inside the courtyard was the strangest garden I'd ever seen. Multicolored mushrooms, poisonous shrubs, and weird luminous plants grew without sunlight. Precious jewels made up for the lack of flowers, piles of rubies as big as my fists, clumps of raw diamonds, standing here and there like frozen party guests, were Medusa's garden statues, petrified children, satyrs, and centaurs, all smiling grotesquely. In the center of a garden was an orchard of pomegranate trees, their orange blooms neon bright in the dark. The garden of Persephone, Annabeth said. Keep walking. I understand why she wanted to move on. The tart smell of those trees was almost overwhelming. I had a sudden desire to eat them, but then I remembered the story of Persephone. One bite of the underworld food, and we would never be able to leave. I pulled Grover away to keep him from picking a big, juicy one. We walked up the steps to the palace between black columns, through a black marble portico, and into the house of Hades. The entry hall had a polished bronze floor, which seemed to boil in the reflected torchlight. There was no ceiling, just the cavern roof far above. I guess they never had to worry about rain down here. Every side doorway was guarded by a skeleton in military gear. Some wore Greek armor, some British redcoat uniforms, some camouflage with tattered American flags on their shoulders. They carried spears or muskets or M16s. None of them bothered us, but their hollow eye sockets followed us as we walked down the hall toward the big set of doors at the opposite end. 2 U.S. Marine skeletons guarded the doors. They grinned down at us, rocket-propelled grenade launchers held across their chests. You know, Grover mumbled, I bet Hades doesn't have trouble with door-to-door salesmen. My backpack weighed a ton now. I couldn't figure out why. I wanted to open it and check to see if I had somehow picked up a stray bowling ball, but it wasn't the time. Well, guys, I said, I suppose we should knock? A hot wind blew down the corridor and the doors swung open. The guard stepped aside. I guess that means come inside, Annabeth said. The room inside looked just like in my dream, except this time the throne of Hades was occupied. He was the third god I'd met, but the first one who really struck me as godlike. He was at least 10 feet tall, for one thing, and dressed in black silk robes and a crown of braided gold. His skin was albino white, his hair shoulder length and jet black. He wasn't bulked up like Ares, but he radiated power. He lounged on his throne of fumed human bones, looking lithe, graceful, and dangerous as a panther. I immediately felt like he should be giving the orders. He knew more than I did. He should be my master. And then I told myself, snap out of it. Hades' aura was affecting me just like Ares' had. The Lord of the Dead resembled pictures I'd seen of Adolf Hitler, of Napoleon, or the other terrorist leaders who directed suicide bombers. Hades had the same intense eyes, the same kind of mesmerizing, evil charisma. You are brave to come here, son of Poseidon, he said in an oily voice. After what you have done to me, very brave indeed. Or perhaps you were simply very foolish. Numbness crept into my joints, tempting me to lie down and just take a little nap at Hades' feet, curled up here and sleep forever. I fought the feeling and stepped forward. I knew what I had to say. Lord and Uncle, I come with two requests. Hades raised an eyebrow. When he sat forward in his throne, shadowy faces appeared in the folds of his black robes, faces of torments, as if the garments were stitched, of trapped souls from the fields of punishments trying to get out. The ADHD part of me wondered, off task, whether the rest of his clothes were made the same way. What horrible things would you have to do in life to get woven into Hades' underwear? Only two requests? Hades said. Arrogant child, as if you have not already taken enough. Speak then. It amuses me not to strike you dead yet. I swallowed. This was going about as well as I'd feared. I glanced at the empty, smaller throne next to Hades's. It was shaped like a black flower, gilded with gold. I wished Queen Persephone were here. I recalled something in the myths about how she could calm her husband's mood. But it was the summer. Of course, Persephone would be above in the world of light, with her mother, the goddess of agriculture, Demeter. Her visits, not the tilt of the planet, create the seasons. Annabeth cleared her throat. Her fingers prodded me in the back. Lord Hades, I said. Look, sir, there can't be a war among the gods. It would be bad. Really bad, Grover added helpfully. Return Zeus's master bowl to me, I said. Please, sir, let me carry it to the Olympus. Hades' eyes grew dangerously bright. You dare to keep up this pretense after what you have done? I glanced back at my friends. They looked as confused as I was. Uncle? I said. You keep saying after what you've done. What exactly have I done? The throne room shook with a tremor so strong they probably felt it upstairs in Los Angeles. Debris fell from the cavern ceiling. Doors bust open all along the walls, and skeletal warriors marched in, hundreds of them, from every time period and nation in Western civilization. They lined the perimeter of the room, blocking the exits. Hades bellowed, Do you think I want war, godling? I wanted to say, well, these guys don't look like peace activists, but I thought that might be a dangerous answer. You are the Lord of Death, I said carefully. A war would expand your kingdom, right? A typical thing for my brothers to say. Do you think I need more subjects? Did you not see the sprawl of asphodel fields? Well, have you any idea how much my kingdom has swollen in the past century alone? How many subdivisions I've had to open? I opened my mouth to respond, but Hades was on a roll now. More security goals, he moaned. Traffic problems at the Judgment Pavilion. Double overtime for the staff. I used to be a rich god, Percy Jackson. I control all the precious metal under the earth. But my expenses. Karen wants a pay raise, I blurted, just remembering the fact. As soon as I said it, um, 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 I wished I could sew up my mouth. Don't get me started on Karen, Hades yelled. He's been impossible ever since he discovered Italian suits. Problems everywhere, and I've got to handle all of them personally. The commute time alone, from the palace to the gates, is enough to drive me insane. And the dead just keep arriving. No, Godling, I need no help getting subjects. I did not ask for this war. But you took Zeus's master bolt. Lies. More rumbling. Hades rose from his throne, towering to the height of a football goalpost. Your father may fool Zeus, boy, but I'm not stupid. I see his plan. His plan? You were the thief on the winter solstice, he said. Your father thought to keep you his little secret. He directed you into the throne room on Olympus. You took the master bolt and my helm. Had I not sent my fury to discover you at Yanzi Academy, Poseidon might have succeeded in hiding his scheme to start the war. But now, you have been forced into the open. You will be exposed as Poseidon's thief, and I will have my helm back. But, Annabeth spoke. I could tell her mind was going a million miles an hour. Lord Hades, your helm of darkness is missing too? Do not play innocent with me, girl. You and the satyr have been helping this hero, come in here to threaten me in Poseidon's name, no doubt, to bring me an ultimatum. Does Poseidon think I can be blackmailed into supporting him? No, I said. Poseidon didn't. I didn't. I have said nothing about the helm's disappearance, Hades snarled, because I have no illusion that anyone on Olympus would offer me the slightest justice, the slightest help. I can ill afford for word to come out that my most powerful weapon of fear is missing. So I searched for you myself, and when it was clear you were coming to me to deliver your threat, I did not try to stop you. You didn't try to stop us? But return my helm now, or I will stop death, Hades threatened. That is my counter-proposal. I will open the earth and have the dead pour back into the world. I will make your lands a nightmare, and you, Percy Jackson, your skeleton will lead my army out of Hades. The skeletal soldiers all took one step forward, making their weapons ready. At that point, I probably should have been terrified. The strange thing was, I felt offended. Nothing gets me angrier than being accused of something I didn't do. I've had lots of experience with that. You are as bad as Zeus, I said. You think I stole from you? That's why you sent the Furies after me? Of course, Hades said. And the other monsters? Hades curled his lip. I had nothing to do with them. I wanted no quick death for you. I wanted you brought before me alive so you might face every torture in the fields of punishment. Why do you think I let you enter my kingdom so easily? Easily? Return my property. But I don't have your helm. I came for the Master Bolt, which you already possess, Hades shouted. You came here with it, little fool, thinking you can threaten me? But I didn't. Open your pack, then. A horrible feeling struck me, the weight in my backpack, like a bowling ball. It couldn't be. I slung it off my shoulder and unzipped it, and inside was a 2-foot-long metal cylinder, spiked on both ends, humming with energy. Percy, Annabeth said. How? I don't know, I don't understand. You heroes are always the same, Hades said. Your pride makes you foolish, thinking you could bring such a weapon before me. I did not ask for Zeus's master bolt, but since it is here, you will yield it to me. I am sure it will make an excellent bargaining tool. And now, my helm, where is it? I was speechless. I had no helm. I had no idea how the master bolt had gotten into my backpack. I wanted to think Hades was pulling some kind of trick. Hades was the bad guy, but suddenly the world seemed turned sideways. I realized I'd been played with. Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades had been set at each other's throats by someone else. The master bolt had been in the backpack, and I'd gotten the backpack from. Lord Hades, wait, I said. This is all a mistake. A mistake, Hades roared. The skeletons aimed their weapons. From high above, there was a fluttering of a leathery wing, and the three Furies swooped down to perch on the back of their master's throne. The one with Mrs. Dodd's face grinned at me eagerly and flickered her whip. There is no mistake, Hades said. I know you have come. I know the real reason you brought the bolt. I know why you have come. I know the real reason why you brought the bolt. You came to bargain for her. Hades loosened a ball of gold fire from his palm. It exploded on the steps in front of me, and there was my mother, frozen in a shower of gold, just as she was the moment when the Minotaur began to squeeze her to death. And that's all we have time for. See you on the next. I'm going to be doing a daily read aloud from now until we finish the book. See you tomorrow then.